were to ask you what the number one reason that you didn't stick to a goal or resolution that you set was, what do you think the answer would be? Well, I decided to ask just that, and I actually polled you guys over on my Instagram to gain an idea of why we think we can't stick to goals or why we fail to create new habits. And I got a lot of really good, insightful responses, but I was surprised because the majority of them fell into the following three categories. You said you were either 1, lazy or lacked self-discipline, 2, you were setting impractical goals, or 3, life would just get in the way and you were bad at prioritizing yourself. And I think these are all pretty fair responses, but they're not really hard stops on why you can't achieve a goal. With some really small tweaks, I think everyone can be successful sticking to a resolution. So I wanted to share with you some of the most common culprits I find when making resolutions or goals that often make them end in failure, and then use that to help you fine-tune your own goals to create ones that you can really follow through on. Okay, number 1, you are not setting a total goal. We're going to talk about getting specific with your goals a little later in this video because I do think it matters to the success. But I love this idea that I heard Jordan Page share recently on her Instagram to set a total goal for the year. So let's say you want to eat a more plant-based diet. Instead of just saying, I'm gonna cook 2 plant-based meals a week, instead make a total goal to cook 100 plant-based meals this year. And why is this little shift to a total goal so important? Because it fixes one of the most common culprits of people not seeing goals through, and one of the biggest reasons you guys mentioned to me when I polled you, and that is that life gets in the way. There is a very good chance that somewhere in the year you're gonna get sick or have a busy week or go on vacation and end up having a couple of weeks where you don't eat any plant-based meals, and this is the exact moment that your goal is going to fail. Because when we fall off our goals, we kind of just give up, right? But if your total goal was to eat 100 plant-based meals a year, you still have time. You haven't failed at your goal at all. Having a total goal gives you a lot more freedom. Instead of saying I'm gonna read 4 books a month, say I'll read 50 books this year, or I'll read 20,000 pages. Instead of saying I'm gonna go to the gym 3 times a week, set a goal to be active 150 times throughout the year. While getting specific about when and how you'll achieve your goals will be helpful, and we're gonna talk about that, having a total overarching goal gives you flexibility that you need to stick with it and to not give up when you've had an off week or, life inevitably gets in the way. All right, number 2 is that you are not being realistic. Many of you answered the poll saying that you set too lofty of goals, and this is true. You may be failing at your goals because you are setting the bar way too high. Now, yes, I want you to set big goals for yourself. I do not want you to sell yourself short. I want you to strive for big things. Goals and resolutions are definitely there to push ourselves to be a little bit better versions of who we are today. But you need to be realistic with your goals. Sometimes shrinking the goal down smaller and then letting it grow works a lot better, right? It's sort of that idea of looking at the next ledge when you were climbing instead of looking all the way to the summit, which can feel a little overwhelming. So set a goal and then ask yourself, how confident am I that I will complete this goal? If your confidence is like a 5 out of 10, the goal is probably a little too lofty, so dwindle it down a little bit. And don't feel like this is selling yourself short. The idea is not to lower your standards, but instead to make the goal so easy that you won't fail. Shrink the goal down so small that you can't not do it, and then do it over and over and over again until it is automatic, and then increase it in time or difficulty. Now let me use an example that I love to use if you've watched my channel for any length of time, and that is my kitchen sink rule. If you're not new here, you've heard me talk about it. A while back, I wanted to work on being tidier, so I set the goal of never going to bed with a dirty sink. This wasn't an insanely huge goal. I wasn't saying I was going to do a deep clean of the kitchen every night, just have a clean sink before I went to bed. And while my overall goal was to be cleaner, I shrunk it down to a very small goal that I knew I could do. And then I did it night after night, month after month, until I literally could not go to bed if my sink wasn't clean. And then I added to it. I couldn't go to bed with a dirty sink, and then I couldn't go to bed if I had a dirty sink and a living room that wasn't tidied. And over time I added more things. The point is I shrunk the goal down real small at first, and then I let it increase and found success with each subsequent smaller goal. I think sometimes when we think about goals, or we think specifically about resolutions, we think we're sort of confined to 1 year, right? We make a New Year's resolution and we want to find full success by the end of the year. So we set our goals too lofty because we're trying to squeeze 3 years of work into 12 months. So yes, sometimes shrinking your goal down smaller and slowly adding difficulty and frequency may take you a little bit longer to reach the goal, but you're also vastly increasing the chances you're actually going to stick to the goal and see it through. So what's better, taking a little longer to actually do the thing you want to do, or to go out the gate at 100 miles per hour and then give up because you're exhausted? The third reason is you are not setting up your environment for your new habit or goal or resolution. This just has to do with setting yourself up for success by making changes to your environment that are conducive to your new habit. Okay, so let's take a look at an example. Say you want to eat a little healthier. In order to eat healthy, you need to set yourself up for success by having your environment set up for this new habit. So if you want to eat well, you need to do more than just buy healthy food, because we all know there's a big difference between buying a bag of spinach and then actually consuming that bag of spinach. So when I am focusing on eating better, I don't just get healthy food in the house, but I get healthy food that I can make simple, quick meals with. Because I know myself and I know my environment. I know that some days I'm gonna have the luxury of 45 minutes to cook dinner. Some days I'm gonna need to muster any last ounce of strength and pull together in 8 minutes. Some days I'll have time to make lunch. Other days I'm just gonna wanna grab like whatever is easy and gonna take the least amount of time. If I'm not setting up my environment for those nights and those lunches when I'm in a rush or I'm exhausted, I'm gonna fail on those days. So in my case, I like having some pre-cooked or simple to prepare items on hand so I know that I won't slip up. I'm setting up my environment to have the healthy food I need. Lately, I have been using Daily Harvest, who's cool enough to sponsor today's video, which means I have a promo code to share with you guys in just a minute. Now, Daily Harvest makes it super easy to eat more fruits and veggies by delivering delicious food to your doorstep that only takes a couple minutes to prep. Personally, I like eating a lot of veggies and plant-based food. I actually was a vegetarian for almost 16 years of my life. But I do find that it takes longer to prep and cook this kind of food. So I love how Daily Harvest allows me to eat this without the time commitment. Many of you probably know Daily Harvest for their smoothies and for their soups, which they've had for a while, but they've really been expanding their offerings over the last few years. They have everything from harvest bowls to flatbreads to oat bowls, and now they just launched Harvest Bakes, which come in 4 different globally inspired flavors. These are plant-based, ready to bake dishes that you literally just pop in the oven and then they're ready. They are a larger size portion packed with fiber and protein to make them perfect for dinner, although I won't lie, these have kind of become my go-to lunches lately because as a busy working mom, I usually have my power meal midday and then I have a smaller dinner. So I love that I can pop these in the oven when I put my kids down for a nap, and I know I'm gonna have a delicious, healthy, plant-based, organic meal without wasting precious nap time. If you're a mom, you know about that precious nap time. Essentially, just by setting up my environment to have these easy to cook healthy meals, I know 100% I'm more likely to stick to that resolution of eating well. And what I love about Daily Harvest is they have super flexible plans, so you can get weekly or monthly deliveries. I have information in the description box down below about where you can sign up, as well as a promo code that is going to get you up to $40 off your first box. Let's take a look at one more example for setting your environment up for success. Maybe your goal is to read more books. If I want to read more books, certainly I need to have more books to read, so that's step 1. But I also want to set up my environment so I can read more. I want to have books easily accessible to me when I want to read or have time to read. So I got a new book and I put it on my nightstand. Now each night before bed, I usually read a few pages because the book is there, it's easily accessible to read, and just this little change of making sure it was there, I was able to check at least like 1 book off my list every couple of weeks. The next thing I did was I put a book in our kitchen. As a mom, I have a lot of time with my kids and a lot of moments in my day when I have little pockets of time that I might use to maybe like mindlessly scroll through my phone, maybe when my kids are eating lunch or they're actually both quietly, independently playing for a few minutes, which doesn't happen all that often, but it happens. So instead of picking up my phone to kill those few minutes, I pick up a book instead. Again, I found I was able to whiz through a book every couple weeks by simply having a book somewhere accessible to me when I knew I was going to have a little time to read. I replaced the habit of picking up my phone with the habit of picking up the book. but I was only able to do that because I had my environment properly set up for it. All right, the next reason is you lack grit. If you have not seen Angela Lee Duckworth's TED Talk on grit, you should look it up. It is worth the 6 minutes of your life, but the truth is, most people do not realize how long it takes to develop a new habit. I think I've heard the number 21 thrown around like a million times, but the truth is habits take longer than 3 weeks to form. One study that I recently read, in which they analyzed a group of participants on the process of forming a new habit in their life, they found it took on average 66 days to develop a new habit. And these weren't huge goals or resolutions, they were very simple habits. In Duckworth's TED Talk, she discusses how she studied who was most likely to succeed in different situations, from school to teaching to sales jobs to like cadets at West Point. She ultimately found that there was only one factor that stood out for those destined to succeed, and it was grit, which she identified as the power of passion and perseverance. Basically, she said that it's not your IQ or your educational background or your physical strength or your socioeconomic status or your emotional intelligence, but your ability and stamina to stick with your goals day after day, week after week, year after year for your long-term goals. I love the quote by F.M. Alexander that says, "People do not decide their futures. They decide their daily habits, and their habits become their future." So how do you get grit? Right? To me, people have more grit when they are sure they will succeed. So definitely using some of the other things on this list in this video that I'm sharing today is going to help, right? Being realistic, being specific with your goals, setting yourself up for success, creating an environment that will help you. These things will all increase your grit because they set you up for success. Most people aren't going to have a lot of grit around something they don't think they're going to succeed in. So don't set up your goal to fail from the start. Now, secondly, and more importantly, I think understanding that failure and difficulty doesn't mean you didn't succeed. I think learning to embrace failure, not as an end point, but just as a stopping, growing, learning, reevaluating point, it helps shift your mindset from that narrow fail or succeed mindset. This way, everything you do isn't either a win or a loss. It's all winning, just as the saying goes, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. Even when you fail, you learn from it. And when you're able to start looking at things that way, it creates grit. If you don't stick to a goal, you don't say, I failed, and move on. You say, okay, how come I didn't succeed? Should it have been a smaller goal? What obstacles were in the way? Could I have changed something about my routine or my environment to better support this? It's a shifting from the you win or you lose mentality to the you win or you learn mentality. Reason number 5, you are relying too heavily on motivation. Here's the truth, you're never gonna feel like it. Many of us wanna rely on motivation to push the needle on our goals and resolutions, and we sit around waiting for the magic of motivation to strike, and occasionally it will. And on those days, moving towards your goals and resolutions will be a little bit easier. But the thing about habits, as previously discussed, is they need to be done day after day, week after week, month after month before they truly become habits. And trust me, motivation is not going to show up every single one of those days. So it's really not a reliable method. You know, when you put clean clothes on your bed, you tell yourself you're going to put them away before sleep, but then it's bedtime and you're like, well, guess they're going back into the basket until tomorrow. Don't rely on motivation to show up each day to push your goals. Next, you are focusing on the results and not the process. Aristotle said it best when he said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence isn't an act, it's a habit. If you want to achieve a goal, you need to spend a little more time thinking about the daily habits that are going to help you achieve it. So when I said in rule 1 that you want a total goal, this is the rule where you break it down and sort of like how you're going to make it happen, getting a little more specific. We want to break this down from the goal right down to the little habits that are going to take to achieve it. It could almost look like a pyramid, right? So I want to read more books. I will read 24 books this year. I will aim for 1 to 3 books a month. I will put 1 book on my nightstand to read a few pages before bed instead of looking through Instagram. I will put a book in the kitchen when I have downtime with the kids, and I will read then. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'll read after the kids go to bed instead of watching a TV show. You see how it trickled down from the total goal into these little daily habits that I would work on to get better? Now you still have your total goal to back you up. If you have an off week, you didn't read, it's not the end of the world. You still got time to meet your goal, but you're being intentional about defining the process of reading and your end result. So let's look at another example. You want to write the first draft of your book. So I want to finish my book. I will write 250 pages of my book this year. I will aim to 3 to 6 pages a week. I will write for 30 minutes twice a week. I will write on Mondays and Wednesdays before I start work. I will schedule 30 minutes into my calendar every Monday and Wednesday so I see the reminder and can take action. This is really focusing on the daily actions that are gonna get you there, right? Saying I'm gonna write a book is a goal, but without defining the actions to actually get you there, there's a very good chance you'll never get started. All right, my friends, there you have it. Those are some of the most common culprits that I see when I don't stick to a goal or when I'm not able to sort of like see a new habit through that I wanted to achieve. These are sort of the things that I look for, or some of the things that I will build into new goals to make it more likely that I am successful with them. As always, thank you so much for stopping by and watching. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I will see you all in my next video.